Hi there. I'm going to teach you how I tie my flies for flasher fly setups. You got the spin doctors and the Michigan stingers. Um, I prefer the ones that obviously have the fin on them so that they can rotate. Um, I'm going to show you how to do, the tinsel fly setup. And then I got some that are more streamlined that look more, these are the Lure Jensen ones. They look more like smelt or something. You can kind of see the head there. So I'm going to do two single hooks and a treble and a single hook setup. Um, for the tinsel flies, I prefer the treble hook at the end because when it's going through the water, I like how the treble hook kind of, you know, pushes out the tinsel. I've done single and treble hook setups, or the double single for the tinsel ones, and I did not like it as much. So I am basically going to snell the two hooks together. For the treble, if you look, there's a recess where the one treble hook just gets welded to the other ones, and then the other ones are basically one piece of metal where it's flat on this side, right here. You see the little bump. You see the little bump where you see it just welded together to the side. So when I do this, I grab the two that are the same piece, so the flat end's always up. And it doesn't matter however you want to snell it. I just go through the bottom to go up, and then I hold it with my finger, like this. And I'll rest it inside that little groove there. And so then I wrap it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 to 12 times until I get down the shank a little ways. Then I'll take the tip of the line and go through from the top to the bottom. So I'm going through the flat side so that it comes out the recessed side. That way, when the fish pulls, it's pulling on the flat side. If I had gone through the bottom side and then come out the flat side, it will bend the hook so that when the fish pulls, it's kicking the hook. So you might pop some of the treble hooks out. So you just pull on it, tighten it up. There's a couple different size beads I use. If I'm using the smaller ones, I'll put 2. But for this one, I'm just going to put one big ruby red one. The reason I'm using red is just because I like a little blood color in there. So I'm just going to slide that down. And then I'm going to slide the single hook on. And you can basically use whatever size. I set mine up for obviously like big laker and king Chinook fishing. Even though I'm on Superior, I prefer to go big or go home. Unless I'm using peanut flies, but that's a whole nother game. So then, whether I'm doing 2 small ones or 1 big one, I do it so that the belly of the single hook just barely can't make it past the bead. So when I put the line to the back of the hook, and again I'll wrap 10 to 12 times. Then I'll feed it back through the belly side. Again, just pull tight. Now, even though this isn't an actual, knot, like nothing's combined together, like literally if I just push this line out, the whole knot could come unraveled. As is, it's like a Chinese finger trap. The tighter you pull, the tighter that line is. And when I snell the single hook, if you see the treble hooks come like this, the single hook's coming in between them, so that way no matter which direction that fish is hitting, it's going to get a hook somewhere in its mouth. And actually, the reason I do it this way, instead of just doing, a lot of guys just do one treble hook, I do it this way because if I get that single hook inside the fish's mouth, I could basically drag that thing back to the dock. There's no way that fish is coming off unless I break the line. And I'm using, this is 40-pound fluorocarbon. I'm using the Cigar STS, the salmon brand. You could use that. P-line is also very good. There's a bunch of them out there. Make sure you're using the leader fluorocarbon material. Do not buy the fluorocarbon that's meant for casting on your rod. It's softer. It's not going to hold the knots as well. And when you're doing the flash or fly setups, the reason I'm using the leader fluorocarbon is because it's a little stiffer. It's more high density. And so you're getting more of a, unlike the mono, it's not going to stretch and lose some of the action. So you're getting all the transfer and kicking action from the flasher to the fly. So then basically, so then what I do is I have a mark on my arm, but basically then to make sure all my fly lengths are the same, you measure, when you're measuring your fly leader, you go from the bottom round part of the hook all the way to the tip. So I go to 24.5 inches when I'm making my thing. I snip the line, throw the little bit of excess away, and so then I'll put the skirt on. And I know some guys like to just knot it and make a loop at the end. I do not, because most guys are using mono, and that's probably alright for mono, but fluorocarbon, the more you have it cutting into itself, the more likely it's going to break off. So what I end up doing is I buy a bunch of big, just dual lock clamps, and you really can't go big enough. I buy the biggest ones I can find in the store at the time. They're usually rated for like 75, 65 pounds or something like that. Because it doesn't really matter because you're hooking it to the end of your flasher. So like, you know, the spin doctors, they don't actually have anything to connect to. So that's why I like the clamps, where actually with the Michigan Stingers, you could, you know, it comes with a clamp already at the tail end. So it wouldn't really matter. But I just do the clamps so I can, you know, like if I like a certain flasher that day, I could swap out the fly colors really easy. For the knot, the polymer knot is good, but make sure when you're doing it, when you feed it through, you got to make sure again that it's not cutting in on itself. So you make sure that the lines, you see how it's not twisting. So then when I do the twist, you know, it's straight together. For this purposes, like what's called the trilene knot, or I think someone also said it was called a fisherman's knot. So basically, I make a double loop, and I tighten that pretty dang close to the bottom of the dual lock. So it's just a really small double circle. And then I'll go over top of it and go 4 or 5 times. And I'll feed the tag end and go back through that double loop. Make sure you get through the middle of the double, otherwise it's not going to hold. And then a lot of guys spit. I got some no scent soap in a cold water bucket, because heat is the enemy of fluoro and monoline. So all I'm going to do is hold the tag end in my teeth. You're not going to pull on the tag end. You're going to pull on the main line and just slide the knot down. The tag end is just being held so it doesn't move. You don't want to pull too hard. You just want it to slide so all the loops go nicely together. Same with the polymer knot. You hold the tag end and you just pull on the main line and just slowly work it down with your fingers. You don't want to pull and tug and stretch out the line. And as you can see, I leave a pretty big tag just because it's far away from where you're actually going, you know, with the hook. And so when you see it's done, the treble hook is literally right at the tail end of the skirt, and the single hook is halfway down. And part of the reason why I started doing the double hook is because sometimes I was getting them to hit the top part. So if we have that single hook, when they hit the top part, that single hook is still getting inside their mouth rather than have it go through and hook into the side of the jaw. Because then if they turn one way, you're basically just ripping that hook out. So that after we have the knot, we measure the leader. It's about 21 to 22 inches long. So all my flies are the same length. That way, all I need to really adjust is I'm eliminating one of the variables rather than, some guys, they'll just shorten up their leaders or make them longer depending on what the fish want. I basically, when I'm running a bunch of flasher fly setups, will just speed or slow up the boat depending on what action they want. So then the next style of fly, which like I said is this more longer, skinnier version, these ones I do not like the treble hook because they're meant to imitate more like a shiner or a smelt, something long and skinny. So we're going to just snell 2 single hooks. So I'm just like the other one, I'm going to hold it like this, feed the line through the belly of the hook, so that it's just like that. And I'm going to go over the tag end is just going to be even with the point of the hook. I'm going to wrap it 10 to 12 times. Till it's, decent way down the shaft of the hook. We're going to feed it back up through, just like we did with the other single hook. Pull her tight. And then for this one, since it's just 2 double single hooks, I'm just going to straight up feed it back in. And so then what I do here, obviously we don't have a treble hook, so I don't want the 2 single hooks to be just like that. That's not a very good chance to hook up a fish. So I'll twist it just a little bit. You can go all the way around, or I just do where one's straight up 90 degrees, so we got flat and flat. So then I'll go where the eye of this hook is even with the tip of that hook, and wrap it again. And again, just feed it right back through. So all I'm doing is wrapping and then feeding it through the eye. And I know a lot of you are probably thinking that there's no way this will hold. Well, I've held plenty of 20 to 30 pound Lakers, and it could sit on there for 2 freaking hours and still not come off. I've had it where I've hooked it onto a log, had my reels on my boat totally maxed out, and just reeled in till that drag wouldn't stop, and then held it there all night, and these still did not come off. And I could take it in the morning and just go and reef on it, grab the line itself and just pound like that, and it still won't break. So we do that, and then the Lure Jensen ones comes with the kind of oval beads, and these actually glow in the dark. Oops. So I'll just slide those 2 on. Because then when I want this to be done, I want that end hook to be just barely hidden by the skirt of the fly. There we go. So see, that red treble hook is just at the end of the fly. So it sits just right there. Because most of the fish are going to hit the tail end of this fish. But then you still got that. So again, we're going to measure from the round end of the hook, not the tip where that hook curves down at the lowest point. And we're going to go to 24 and a half. snip it. And again, just use a big honkin' dual lock swivel. Something, you don't want anything with ball bearings in it because you don't want any of the action to be lost from the flasher. So you want it all to be transferred to the fly. That's the whole point of the flasher fly. So again, we go through, we go loop around, and you tighten that loop till it's extremely tiny, almost resting up against the tip of that. So then I'll pinch it right there, and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll go right back through. Wet the knot, hold the tag end, and unlike the olden days, you don't want to just pull and reef on this thing because then you're already going to damage your knot. You just want to pull so that everything's loosely tight down there. So in this way, it can settle in when the fish grabs it. Perfectly solid knot. Thank you very much. Hope this was a big help. I know a lot of guys, they don't show you how to do this for salmon and trout fishing, and I hope you learned something.